So it's clear that a lot has happened over the past week, right? To say the least. There's a poet named John Rydell who said, "What a weird time to be alive." No matter what your beliefs are, no matter where you are in the political spectrum, you can definitely say, what a weird time to be alive. And many of us, not all of us, but many of us have felt the impact of recent events in a negative way, feeling sad, scared, angry, uncertain, hopeless. And at the outset, I'll say that some can view my talk today here as political. View it that way if you will, but it's really about values. It's really about unity, and it's really about what should we do in such a time as this. So our nation is clearly divided, I think more so than ever in my lifetime, in our lifetimes, probably since the Civil War. And people are spewing hateful rhetoric. You can feel that kind of energy, that kind of lack of unity. And one thing is for sure, change is happening. Change is happening, and the chaos that comes with it is happening. And it is a very weird time. And I'll tell you this about change. Have you heard about the magnetic north shifting? Anybody heard about that? Okay. So it is a thing. Map data for navigation systems is being adjusted. According to Google search, it says a magnetic North Pole shift refers to the ongoing movement of the Earth's magnetic North Pole, in other words, where the needle on a compass points, and it's gradually shifting towards Siberia. A place, anybody ever been to Siberia? Okay, someone raised their hand, yeah. Lydia, you have to tell us about that. And the rate of the movement of this acceleration of the North Pole shifting, it's increasing in recent decades. Yeah. And so it's, if you agree, play a song. But it's a natural phenomena. It's a natural phenomena, but we are now trying to understand it because we have the instruments to measure it. And if that isn't strange enough, according to recent scientific research, the Earth's molten core slowed down and is now going backwards relative to the spin of the Earth. So it's been going along with us for all these years. Well, it hasn't done this for 70 years, okay? So it's emblematic of what's going on in the world. Things are going backwards, right? It's all one, right? So how can this craziness with the shifting North Pole and everything be going on and it not mean everything, in some sense, is going backwards? In some sense, we're losing, some part of society is losing its compass, or the true north may be shifting. But, y'all heard about the planetary alignment, right? But the planets are in alignment. So my interpretation is that change, and this particular change, is destined somehow. It's not just part of chaos. Chaos theory says that chaos is not random. It's not chaos at all. And perhaps through all this destiny, you were born for such a time as this. Were you born for such a time as this? Now, I don't often quote the Old Testament, but I'm going to quote it today. I'm going to refer to it, and I'm going to actually quote many people today. This phrase from the Bible, Esther chapter 4, verse 14, is where this phrase, for such a time as this, comes from. And it means, according to Wikipedia, that someone in a specific situation or moment where their unique abilities and position are needed needs to come forth. Okay? Or read differently, someone like you is in a specific situation or moment where your unique capabilities and position are needed to address a critical change or opportunity in such a time as this. And so this also implies that there's a sense of divine providence. This is some sort of divine plan. And so in Esther 4:14, Mordecai, who is her uncle, who was her mentor, tells Esther that she may have to become queen for such a time as this to save her people. And she did. She was a Jewish woman in Persia who became queen of Persia and thwarted the genocide of her people. She stepped forward in such a time as that. The book of Esther asks us to trust in the process even when we can't see it working. That requires a posture of hope to believe that no matter how horrible things get, and this is, by the way, this is a blend of my words and Wikipedia's words, no matter how horrible things get, God is at work. The story is full of odd coincidences and reversals that force you to see God's purpose at work behind every scene. Okay, so now I'm going to fast forward a few centuries to April 3rd, 1968. Anybody know what date that was? That was Martin Luther King's last speech. And he said, this is another person who recognized that we are here for such a time as this. Susan posted yesterday to some people, the author Heather Cox Richardson talked about Dr. King. And let me tell you this about Dr. King. He told the audience in that speech that if God had let him choose any era in which to live, he would have chosen this very era. And he said, now that's a strange statement to make because the world is all messed up. The nation is sick. Trouble is in the land. Confusion is all around. But I know somehow that only when it is dark enough, says Dr. King, can you see the stars. And Dr. King said he felt blessed to live in an era when people had finally woken up and were going to work together for freedom and economic justice. Well, clearly that fight is alive and continuing. And later, Dr. King said, I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. Okay, so his words are so appropriate for today. So what is ours to do? What is our magnetic north? Now, our magnetic north is not shifting at all. Our spiritual north has not changed. Everything around us, the condition, in Unity they would teach the condition, which is temporary. These facts out here are temporary, but what's real is the absolute reality that we tap into. That's the reason why we light this candle. That's the reason why we have these pictures of all the religions on the wall. That's the reason why the banner says we're seeing through new eyes, because we're seeing through the eyes of not the temporary. We're seeing through the eyes of not the condition that we think is chaos. We're seeing through the eyes of the divine, which we are, and we're here on purpose to bring our power into this place to effect change. So our vision has not changed, our values have not changed, but they are being tested. The most spiritual growth does not happen on a yoga mat. Ever heard that one? It doesn't happen at Starbucks. Well, it may happen at Starbucks. There's a big long line. But it happens in moments where you're pushed, or you're challenged, in the moments that aren't so fun. But then what happens in those moments, you get tested and you step forward, and what happens is so much more rewarding than you can imagine when you step forward into your own power. So what is ours to do in this time such as this? I'll posit a few things. One, we must lean into our values. There's no politics in that. People can't argue with leaning into the values of, it's right on our website, diversity, inclusion, love, compassion. Anybody else? What are some values we hold true? Say again? Strength. Anyone else? Resilience, compassion. Any more? Say again? Dessert. Oh, yes, wisdom. I thought you said dessert. That's not yet. So everyone has their, Unity has these that are on the website, but there are values in this room that are not on the website. There are values that you carry as a spiritual person, so I say lean into those values. What else is ours to do? We can lean into hope. You may not think this says hope, but this is Taoism. This is the Tao symbol, and it's the yin and the yang, or the yin and the yang, depending on how you pronounce it. But what it means, you can see that dark area growing and growing and growing, and what it means, when the dark peaks, it contains the seed of the light. And that is balance. Okay, so that gives me hope, because in the seed of moments that feel hopeless, in the seed of desperation is planted the opportunity to bring forth the birth of the next thing. We're here to give birth to the next thing as a society. So leaning into, every time you look at that symbol, think of hope for that birth. And next, we need to lean into empowerment. A friend of mine said, I'm freaked out. I'm looking at ways I can have power to affect positive change, and I'm fluctuating between choosing anxiety, and choosing empowerment. Anybody feel that way? Okay? Yes. I heard an emphatic yes. Me too. And empowerment, I go to Wiki again. This is interesting. Empowerment is a concept which is characterized by moving away from deficit-oriented perception and towards strength-oriented perception. And that is, deficit-oriented perception is what we talk about in Unity as lack and limitation thinking. It's never going to happen. Things are never going to get any better. We're going to turn into an authoritarian regime. We have no power. Those are all lack and limitation thinking. I can't affect change. My one voice doesn't matter. Ain't it horrible? Right? So we can choose a strength-oriented perception instead and leave behind the lack and limitation, which we carry regardless of the political situation. We're carrying bags and tape recordings of lack and limitation around with us. So it's time for us to erase those, delete those, so we can see with new eyes what's coming next. And how do we, this topic of empowerment, leaning into empowerment, how do we keep our power? Last night at about midnight, up pops on Facebook this little thing from Louise Hay. And she said, the moment you say affirmations, you are stepping out of victim mode. You are no longer helpless. You are acknowledging your power. You're acknowledging your power. So let's try this together. You want to try this with me? I'm going to say something. You're going to repeat it back to me. This is affirming and using your voice, and we're all going to do it together. You're not alone in this. Repeat after me. I will not give in to victimhood. Good. I am not seeing through the eyes of a victim. I'm choosing heaven today. I'm choosing power today. I will not give in to fear. None of this has power over me. And so it is. Yeah, feels good to say that. So I'm quoting a lot of people today, and as I get ready to close, one thing that we can do further is lean into courage. It's a kind of courage that doesn't come from efforting or struggle. Have you when you think of the word courage, I mean, I think of, I'm gonna try, I'm gonna muster, I'm gonna do this difficult thing, I'm gonna walk through the storm, and it's, it's like this, courage. But I'm thinking about the different kind of courage that came up in my mind recently when Susan Ledford, she gave me permission to share this during our sacred circle gathering. She said, you will know what to do when the time comes. Now, what are those times in your life where something happened and you didn't think you could ever do that, but you did it? For me, it was when my mom had a stroke in 2016, and as soon as she got out of the hospital, 3 days later, I was sleeping on her living room floor, being her full-time caregiver for 9 months. She wouldn't let any help in besides me. And yet, I found the power to do things that I never thought. And you know something? It was visceral. It was this power that came within me. You know that the story about the mother who sees her child and the car is tipped over and she lifts the car? That wasn't difficult for her to do. It was divine, right? So are there times in your life, are there examples in your life where there's something happened that you stepped forward and you did it? That didn't require courage in the conventional definition of the word. You had the power all along. So that's the kind of power that we need to muster. And trust is going to come true. And like Susan said, you will know what to do when the time comes. And it doesn't have to be something big and grandiose. It can be something small, like talking to a stranger, talking to someone that needs help, listening at the right moment. So in conclusion, I say, in times like these, lean into your power, lean into your hope, lean into your values. That's not politics at all. Our values haven't changed. And when you're tired of leaning in, every once in a while, I'll take this final little piece of advice from a friend of mine. When you're tired of leaning in, rest. Because she said, rest is resistance. I'll leave it there.